Be recording?
I think so.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, welcome everyone to the Mobilizing Main Street cohort huddle. This is our first virtual training in the series, and we're very excited to try it out. So please be interactive. You all have met one another in person, so you know what everybody's like and what they're all about. So hopefully you will not feel intimidated to raise your hand and ask questions or pipe up and speak when it's your turn. I think by now everyone is fairly familiar with the Teams format, so I'm not going to get into these details too greatly unless we go seriously sideways today, and then we'll cover it next time. Next slide. So today's goals are to understand the role of Main Street nonprofit governance, reflect on your Main Street program's mission and vision, and identify key stakeholders that inform your decision making. We'll start with a welcome and warm up, and then go into the training, which is called Building Strong Foundations. We'll go over the homework for the next 30 days, as well as review the homework from the last 30 days when we talk about building strong foundations. And then we'll have an optional Q&A or networking time at the end and adjourn about 12:30. So the whole Virginia Main Street team will be here until 12:30 if you have any questions or want to talk about something with us as a resource. All right, so get ready to start interacting. Amy is going to be the scribe, so she'll be taking down your words, whether they're in chat or they're spoken. But our icebreaker this morning, please share your name, your role, and the one thing that you hope to take away from this session today. And I'll start to call on people if people don't pipe up. So there's no way out. All right, the first name that I see is Michelle in Portsmouth. So, oops, I already leaked your name, but what's the one thing you hope to take away from this session?
All right, so yes, Michelle Wren. I am the executive director of the Portsmouth Partnership. And just excited to see who's on the call and meet everybody and learn how we can move our initiatives forward.
Thank you. Team Roanoke, which is being called Mandy Cribb. I think you guys have a watch party going on there. What is one thing that you hope to take away from this session?
Do you want us to all just say hey quick that are in the room? All right. So myself, Mandy, I'll change our name, by the way. Excited to see everybody and just kind of excited to dig into the next phase, the next steps of homework. Move things along.
Catherine Gray, and the same as Mandy.
Wayne Leftwich.
And Doug Jackson's in the room.
Woohoo!
I love that Brady Bunch thing you guys have going on. That is super cool.
Amazing.
And Wayne and Doug, what do you hope to get out of today's session?
I can't wait to see Roanoke build some energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and likewise, I'm excited about continuing to have this conversation and keep moving forward.
Great. Katie Mercer.
Hi, everybody. It's not just me. There are two of us, gonna be three. And then Zach, I'm not sure if he's joined yet, but he might speak up. But collectively, oh, there he is. I'm gonna admit him. Kyle. Just to kind of understand a little bit more about kind of recommendations for the nonprofit structure. So it's Katie, Zach, Jen, and then we'll also have Lacey, Team Woodstock.
Excellent. Welcome, Team Woodstock.
Hi, thanks.
Adrienne Boyer, Waynesboro. What are you hoping to get out of our discussion today? You are on mute. Adrienne, can you turn on your mic?
I sure can. Sorry about that. I am on our board for Downtown Destination Waynesboro, and I would love to learn some more like best practices. We've had an established board for a while, but getting them engaged and committees doing the things that they need to do in order to keep these things moving would be amazing to learn some best practices again from everybody else.
Great. Ben Bazak, you're next in my queue. I know that Team Roanoke has joined without you, but we still would love to hear from you what you're hoping to get out of the conversation today.
Well, hello, everybody. And yeah, I think the same. I think some energy and some momentum going and seeing how, as Roanoke, we fit into this whole puzzle. And yeah, and touching base with everybody. It's nice to see everybody.
You too. Rebecca Marsh from Salem. How are you today? What are you hoping to learn?
Good morning, everyone. We don't currently have a super established board, so just kind of learning more about nonprofit structure and kind of best ways to move forward are certainly what I'm excited for.
Great. John Papp.
Hey y'all, this is John Papp, co-chair of the Leesburg Movement, Leesburg's Main Street organization. I'm really hoping to learn how to work even more closely with the Virginia Main Street team. They've been a great resource, especially Blair. So learning more about those resources and more of what they can provide will be awesome.
Great. And John, the way your fan is positioned over your head, it reminds me of those little hats with the helicopter propeller things on top.
Yeah,
so,
I can see that.
Very clever.
Thank you.
Sarah Borzio from Visit Occoquan.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm the executive director of Visit Occoquan, which is the nonprofit for our tourism. And we have a new board, so I'm excited to see if we're doing things correctly and what we can do to kind of cultivate this under a year-old board that we have.
Excellent. You're in your honeymoon phase. This is the time to make all the best decisions. Ellen Anders.
Hey everybody, my name is Ellen Aders and I'm the president of the board for Downtown Front Royal Inc. And I actually did a little bit of the reading and the explanation of each board member's responsibilities. So I'm anxious to have some conversation about that.
Great. And I apologize for mispronouncing your last name. I'm formerly an Anderson, so it was a reflex.
You would not be the first person to do that, I promise.
Shannon, who is unverified, can you please tell us which community you're with and what you're hoping to get out of our conversation today?
Yes, I'm Shannon Ainsley. I am with the town of Pulaski, in Pulaski on Main. I am on the board and also the economic developer for the town. So we've had a lot of change in our board, and so we're hoping to get some resources on building up our board and the organization and helping with revitalization efforts on Main Street.
Great, thank you. Catherine Potter. You are on mute, Catherine. Can you turn on your mic, please? It should be in the upper right-hand corner, 2 buttons over from the red leave button, which I don't want you to hit. It's a little microphone shape, and just poke it. No, okay. Well, feel free to type your comments in the chat while I call on Katie Beach.
Hi, I'm Katie Beach from Salem, and I think along with Becca, kind of learning a little bit more about that nonprofit structure, board structure, and how to really engage what that's going to look like for Salem.
Thank you. We're starting to run low on minutes, and I still have quite a few of you. So, Kyle, if you'll indulge me, we'll just introduce everyone who's still on the call. Zach Wimmer. Can you take yourself off mute, Zach?
Zach, you're still muted.
Yeah, you're still muted, so something's
he's with us. He's with Woodstock.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, you've been spoken for, Zach. But hopefully next time we'll figure it out. Jordan.
Hi, yes, I am with Aquaquan, and I'm really excited just to, the same as Sarah, making sure that we've been doing everything correctly and figuring out things that we don't know.
Excellent. Erin Weston.
Hi there, I'm Erin Weston alongside John Papp with Leesburg Movement. Like he said, I'm really excited to get to know all of the VMS resources that are available to us. And then echoing what a few other people said about keeping not only board members engaged and motivated, but also our network of volunteers.
Thank you. Liz Pasqualini.
Morning, everyone. I'm with Portsmouth Main Street. And I think today, like just getting a better understanding of steps moving forward, how to keep our steering committee engaged. Also the conversation just around mission and vision, had us thinking a little bit about scope and helping us kind of think through that a little bit more would be great.
Thank you. Emily Turk.
Hi, I'm Emily. I am from the city of Salem. Just going off kind of what Rebecca and Katie have said, kind of learning best practices and, what resources we can use to strengthen the support of the board and how we can move forward.
Thank you. Matt Whitmoyer.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Matt Whitmore. I'm with Aquaquan, so with Sarah and Jordan already popped on. It's the same goals there of kind of see if we're going the right way with our board and just kind of get more, clarity on what we need to do to move forward to make a sustainable organization.
Thank you.
I like
And
your
Courtney,
town of Occoquan signs in the background.
Yeah. I think we're good
Thanks.
for now. We need to get moving on some of the other stuff. So, but thank you. Is there any? Well, everybody will have a chance to talk later on. So I love that you all are awake. You've had your coffee. You showed up. So for those who didn't get to talk yet, I hope that you have an opportunity during our breakout groups that'll be coming up soon. So please be prepared. But thank you. We should be good to go. All right, so I just wanted to point out here that these are the team norms with a little AI assist. We did a little facilitation in Stanton to talk about the best practices in order to stay engaged with the material and have a positive experience with results here at Mobilizing Main Street. So I'll ask that you guys become familiar with this. I think that as far as the best practices that you're looking for, you're going to find a little bit of that in these messages here, which are very positive and sort of results forward. So there is a version of this that is on the Google Drive, front and center, right next to the activities tracker. So I would say read it over, take it in. Maybe make it the beginning of every meeting that you ever have. I don't know. That might be taken a little far, but these are yours. They just look pretty because AI gave it its little polish. So over the last 30 days, you guys had some homework. Some of them are kind of short, like reviewing the Starting a Main Street guide. Some of you may not need so much information of that. Some really need to dig in. There's a short video on achieving nonprofit status for nonprofits, so talks a little bit more about the process. Again, some of you may not need that because you already have that 501c3 in place. And then I think most importantly for today is watching the video from Simon Sinek, Start With Why, and then doing the homework that relates to that. Also, getting you guys set up with Main Street America membership. Just know that that is happening. The information has been sent to Main Street America, and you all should be getting some sort of welcome or confirmation in the not too distant future. And then working with your program administrator for CAMS access if you don't already have that, because we've got grants and that's the way you do it. That's the way you do reporting. We want to make sure you guys get set up with that stuff. Not as urgent, but important. There was also, we call this digging deeper. This isn't an assignment, but this is a great guide. The Main Street Approach, a comprehensive guide to community transformation. This is a fairly short Main Street America document. Have it. Read it when you've got a spare minute. It really addresses everything that we're doing here and can give you that baseline of information and even some talking points as you're explaining to those who don't know much about Main Street what you all are doing right now. All right, so let's get into our learning objectives for today. This is the importance of the nonprofit governance side of things. I think you're going to hear a little bit of best practices and why we recommend that the program be structured this way. We probably won't go in that deep for you as far as roles and responsibilities of a board, but no, there are additional, in the first quarter, you'll be learning a lot about that stuff coming up. So no, that is before us soon. So, the slide addresses some key points about what Main Street is. And I just want to make clear from this that the program is centered on this grassroots element. It's a very important part of the work that we do. Sure, it's about reinvigorating your traditional downtown neighborhood. Sure, it's about economic development through leveraging your place-based assets. But all of that is essential, but at its core, Main Street works because it's a grassroots revitalization strategy. And that's responsive to the community of this bottom-up approach. This is a great quote from a Main Street America document that probably nobody's seen, not even my team. I've always held on to it. It's an internal document, but they say in this, when they explain the Main Street approach, the Main Street approach is most effective in places where community residents have a strong emotional, social, and civic connection and are motivated to get involved and make a difference. So keep that in mind. You can see more of this in the Main Street America's vision and mission. So this is also acting as a nice example as you guys dive in and refine the work that you're doing. So you'll hear this grassroots baked in to what we have going on. But everyone, as far as vision goes, everyone has access to an inclusive and resilient Main Street, a place that has a thriving local economy, is distinctive and rich in character, and features welcoming spaces and diverse businesses for residents and visitors alike. So this is their vision. This is what they're aiming for. And then their vision, their mission, as far as their why. Main Street America leads a collaborative movement with partners and grassroots leaders that advances shared prosperity, creates resilient economies, and improves quality of life through place-based economic development and community preservation in downtowns and neighborhood commercial districts across the country. It's their why. More in that, you guys haven't really gotten into this yet, but I want to let you know and point this out. And this document you'll have access to, but this is the Main Street America Evaluation Framework. And so over the last 40 years, they have worked from a list of standards and principles, but in the last 5+, they refined these into a new evaluation framework that is based on best practices. It's a great tool for learning about, what you're aiming for, what those activities that are necessary in order to get the results out of your program that you're looking for. So we will be utilizing this framework as we move through the curriculum. Sometimes you will be assigned a homework in order to learn a little bit more about one of these about one of these standards. Okay, that's a little bit of a Main Street 101 kind of thing really quickly, but this is what I'm aiming to get to, is the organization around that 501c3, which you hear so much about. So while Main Street programs can be housed in any number of agencies or organizations, one of the most common and successful ways to establish an independent private organization whose express purpose is revitalization of the commercial district. As a separate organization, the Main Street program can. So you got to have that independent organization. And so the program can, by having that, bring together public and private interests in an objective environment, unhampered by the constraints of local politics, though we know they're a little bit influenced. Establish an agenda exclusively for revitalization of the commercial district, maintain a clear focus on issues that affect the district, and serve as a visible symbol of renewal, new activity, and new future for the commercial district. So a 501c3 nonprofit is the best vehicle to implement a grassroots asset-based economic development program for historic commercial districts. And you'll see here that what you guys are aiming for is that advancing Virginia Main Street tier. And 100% of them are now 501c3 nonprofit organizations. We've had some that have learned along the way that their existing model, which was grandfathered, wasn't working for them ideally. But they, through time, pursued getting that 501c3 in place. Winchester is a great example of that, and they're already starting to see the results from that. So as far as our entry tier and exploring Main Street, we've got a smattering of different organizational types, but that's because each of those programs are dipping their toes in the water and figuring out what works best. And as they realize and that they want to take things a little further, we'll start nudging them into that requirement of having that 501c3 in place. So here's a little bit more about that 501c3, what's really important to know about that, and the differences between the 501c4 and 501c6, which are those civic organizations or even a business association are organized around that. So the purpose of a 501c3 is charitable and educational. And so the way you sort of blow that out a little bit and understanding how Main Street fits into that is that through public education, through lessening the burden of government, combating community deterioration, and historic preservation. Now that's listed in the next slide if you're like, oh, I need some more about that. So just know. Moving on down a little bit, as far as political activity goes, Main Street organizations as 501c3s can do some advocacy. They just can't have direct, substantial part of their activities going towards this kind of legislation and lobbying. So you absolutely can advocate for your organization. They're exempt from federal taxes. But where the 501c3 is set apart from 501c4 or 501c6 is that charitable donations are available to donors. So additional opportunity for revenue and fund development. They're eligible for foundation and federal grants, so another source of revenue for the program. And business deductions are available to the donor. So any businesses that donate to your organization, they're able to are able to deduct that from their taxes. So that's another incentive for investment. So we really find out that this is best suited for Main Street, not only because of sort of the purpose that's involved in being qualifying for a 501c3, but it does create an opportunity for more income streams and sustainability for the organization. So this is typically what you see as far as organizational structure. Anybody? Okay, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. All right, I'm just gonna go on ahead. I feel this sense of like urgency to get through this information here today. Because it's so important. It's the foundational stuff. But your governing body for the organization is your board of directors. So you have to have that distinct organization and governing body. A board of directors who are elected to govern and oversee the organization's operations. The board should be a decisive group, action-oriented group. small enough to establish a quorum easily, and large enough to represent a cross-section of the community, really representing what the community looks like as far as demographics and skills go. So we're looking at between 9 and 15 members. You don't want it too big because it gets a little difficult to get that quorum. A little bit smaller actually works nicely. One of my communities that I work with keeps about 7, but they're a teeny tiny community of about 1,000. And that really is their sweet spot for getting work done and getting everybody to show up and be accountable. So the executive director is the central coordinator of program activities. So that's sort of the everyday operations and provide that hands-on involvement critical to a successful program. You'll find out in the Main Street America Community Accreditation Standards that a paid executive director is required. And so for a community population of less than 5,000, that role can be part-time. You'll find that it'd be great to keep it full-time because there's a lot of work to be done. So that's just minimum right there, but full-time is great. You want to aim for that. The role is most closely aligned to the board president. So you don't want all the board of directors ordering the executive director around. Really, that it should be more of a one-on-one relationship conversation between that chairman or the board president. So between the executive director and that board president, they're really co-leading and providing sole direction for the program. The local government funded EDs, and this is something to just kind of put out there. If your local government is going to fund an executive director, it creates a stable scenario because there's access to those benefits. But the challenge here is that that executive director needs to answer to the board of directors. So somewhere in that agreement, that needs to be made clear. If there are too many, cooks in the kitchen ordering that executive director around, that's when, progress can really be stifled. And we've seen that in some other communities. And then, they kind of learn their lesson and they relinquish the guidance and governing of that executive director to the board of directors and the board president. So just keep that in mind. Support staff such as administrative and marketing support staff. That includes like administrative role or marketing events, those kinds of roles. Answer to the executive director, of course. And committees are the backbone of a successful program. I mean, that's really how things are getting done. And committees are the vehicles by which the board of directors implements the program's work plan and through which activities happen. And committees are also an important conduit for leadership pipelines. So that's a great way to start grooming some of those new board of directors. Also, just want to let you know that you see here that I don't have the 4 points under the 4 committees. That's not required. It is helpful early on to have that, but it's most effective for these committees to be organized around your priorities for your work plan and what you guys are trying to achieve. What's most important is that your work plan be comprehensive across the 4 points. How are we doing? Goodness, it's already... All right, so I want to point out here that I'm not going to go into the roles in great detail. That's something we're going to talk about later on in this first quarter, but this is more of an illustration just so you know, hey, these are the folks that are governing the organization. So, but we'll really go in deep at the May Rev Up. This is the executive committee that you're looking for, and they help manage and focus the board's responsibilities. And the success of the program really depends largely on them to kind of keep things in order here, to build to mobilize resources, to build volunteer support, develop new leadership, and maintain clear focus on the district's needs and opportunities. So they're really keeping the organization focused and resource rich. And the president or the chairperson, whatever you want to call them, serves as the primary link between the board and the executive director, acts as a coordinator to facilitating the decision-making process. And he also delegates responsibilities. She or he delegates responsibilities. And the vice president supports the president and shares responsibilities as delegated. The secretary serves as the primary record keeper, and the treasurer prepares monthly financial reports and maintains all financial books and records in an audit format. So more on that in the coming months. There are a few documents that are key to know. These are foundational pieces. I'm not going to go into all of them because we'll go into this a little bit more even next month when we're working with the Center for Nonprofit Excellence. But one of your key documents to know is your Articles of Corporation. This is a legal document that outlines the general responsibilities and structure of the organization and its intent to operate exclusively within a nonprofit purpose. It's filed with the state when the nonprofit is incorporated. So this is something, if you already have a 501c3 in place, you've got some articles of incorporation, you should go check them out. But if you don't, then these are going to be filed during that process of establishing your 501c3. Your bylaws. So these are the significant written rules that establish the governance structure of a nonprofit. And they define the duties, the authority limits, and principal operating procedures for the policy and board members. And some of the policies, some of the higher level ones are incorporated into that. But most of those policies are going to be in a policies and procedures manual because you want to have this arduous bylaws document that has to be voted on constantly. But you do want to have it refined so it operates in alignment with your organization. So then policies, some can apply, some apply to the organization, such as whistleblower and gift acceptance policies are really important there. Some policies supplement the bylaws, that's what I was saying earlier, and guide board practices and oversight procedures, such as investment, internal controls, and executive compensation. Some direct state staff operations, such as personnel policies are included in that, and others serve as operating guidelines for board and staff. You've also got some other important documents like job descriptions, your agendas that guide your meetings, your meeting minutes that help document your discussions and actions that'll take place, and then your IRS Form 990, which is filed each year. And all nonprofits must indicate whether the board has approved certain policies and followed specific processes when making governing decisions. So the laws do not require any policies, but no board should be comfortable reporting that it does not have conflict of interest. There's another one to keep up with: whistleblower or document destruction policies, things like that. So they want to be part of that Form 990. Okay, that's a lot. You guys aren't expected to be experts at this point, but hopefully that provides enough of those foundational pieces of your organization that you're aware of those buzzwords, and you can start working with your PA on what elements of your organization that you need to start shoring up. So one of the most important things to shore up here is whether you have a 501c3 in place. So I'm curious, I'm going to launch a poll to see how many of you already have these in place. So look out for that. So take a minute to do this. Know that nobody's names are recorded. This is just generally getting an idea of what we have here as far as how many have 501c3 in place. And we're probably going to be looking at percentages more so because more of you guys are going to vote, and each of you are voting, representing a local program. Getting them in. Let's see, view results. Maybe that's what I want to see. Oh, wow, about 50-50. I thought we had a few more 501c3s in place already. Interesting. All right. Well, for those of you who don't, start talking to your PA so we can get things start getting things in order to start that process. All right. Next
Hey,
thing
Kyle.
here. Yes.
Just if you didn't see the chat, just to note that some communities are not able to vote for some reason.
Oh, I think that has something to do with not being part of the state network. So we'll have to look at that. We've run up against that in the past too. I'm glad to see that you're able to use chat. That's when things have run awry there. All right, we're going to break out into groups right now for about 5 minutes. It's not going to be a long time. I'm going to do this randomly, and so there'll be about 4 to 5 groups. You're not probably going to be with your teams. My teams, as far as VMS, you guys are going to just kind of be thrown in there too. And I will also take the questions and make sure that they're visible. Admitting that person, so you can see the questions, because you're not going to be able to see this slide. But everybody, once you get into your groups, you're going to be given these questions. You can take a snapshot, but like I said, I'm going to put them into the announcements so that you can see them. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. You're going to have these questions to discuss. All right. See y'all in about 5 minutes. Do you guys see the? We can discuss it here if you're having trouble getting into your groups.
Yeah, is it just the 2 of us, 3 of us?
I guess, yeah. It's just, yeah. So John, Daniel, yeah. So did the prompt pop up for you guys to jump in?
No, but
I'm still seeing your shared screen. Oh.
But you didn't see it in it. What was that, John?
To make sure you can hear me. Yeah, I didn't get the prompt either, but I'm on a different version of Teams. I don't have a paid version. I'm on a web browser. Maybe that's it as well.
Same.
Everybody else is probably in the same boat, so I'm not sure. That it may be, updating, but we'll figure that out. You may need to update your software. It may be something like that. I'm not quite sure, but you guys will have to do a little bit of TA, kind of figure out if you can figure out what the issue is, because we'll be doing this throughout the rest of the 2 years. But let's go ahead and chat a little bit here. So remind me who everybody is, what community you represent, John.
Sure, I'm with the Leesburg movement. I'm the co-chair right now. To be chair.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, you should be able to answer this question pretty well.
Yeah.
Daniel.
Yeah. So we're with Rocky Mount. My name is Daniel.
My name is Susan.
Susan, thank you guys. Kyle here.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I believe that each of you guys already have 501c3s in place, right? No.
So we are Rocky Mount. The organization is Community Partnership. It's been around for 25 plus years. And it's currently a C6, but we've already got started down the road consulting with a lawyer to become a C3. So the wheels are already in motion on that.
Yeah. Any questions about the benefits of that, or does it seem like everybody's on board at this point?
I think everyone's on board on our end. Do you?
Yes, I think
agree?
so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think we had all thought it was a C3 until relatively recently we had done some more digging and found out that we're filed as a C6.
C6.
Okay. All right.
So it's just kind of course correcting because I work for the municipality. I'm the town's, I do tourism and economic development for the town. And functionally, the organization has been functioned as like similar to a 501c3 rather than a C6.
Okay. I gotcha. John, your organization's fairly new, in the last 2 years?
Yeah.
How are things going as far as having some of those pieces in place, and you see any opportunities for, helping the organization to be more effective?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of good momentum to get to this point with the 501c3 organization, the executive director search we're going to put out for a part-time executive director, getting some funding and an MOU from the town. So all great things. What we're seeing challenging now is that how to sustain the momentum, right? We've been with pretty much the core group of people we've had for the last 2 years, but we need fresh people and fresh insight. So being able to bring those new faces in and have that transition is what we're trying to work on now, and that's
I got
hard,
you.
to be honest. Finding people who are just as passionate as we were and are about the organization. How do you bring them into the fold and keep the momentum going? So
yeah. I think we'll be discussing those kinds of key opportunities later on, because we're hitting a lot of foundational elements right now. But there's some really great guidance through these standards, this framework document that I'll share later on. So there's plenty of great information out there to help you with that piece. And of course, talking with Blair through any of this, that's where I think a lot of rubber hits the road, is after all these ideas are in your head and you get to process them with some guidance and find out where those little individual tasks might be that are specialized to your program needs.
It's amazing so far, so we're really fortunate to have her. I'm glad about that.
Right. So let's see, we're about 4 minutes in. I'm also being a time watcher right now. I'm moving by quickly. Do you guys we've got about 1 more minute. Anything else you guys want to talk about while we're in this small group?
So Rocky Mountain folks, I'm just curious. So you are a official part of the town, or are you still a separate organization technically?
So it is a separate organization. I do work for the municipality, but I am on that board, whereas Susan here, she's a business owner and is the secretary of the board. So it is a separate entity, but we're one of those organizations that has that kind of hybrid model with that executive director, because we actually just put the job posting out a couple of weeks ago. And so that person will have the be with the town, but will work at the direction of the nonprofit.
They're officially employed by the town.
Correct. Yeah. Make it easier to attract someone with the benefits and salary.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. We had a few that weren't able to get into the breakout groups. So I had my own group. It was kind of nice to have, actually. So thanks, Rocky Mountain Leesburg, for that. So let's just take a minute to just some key discoveries, from that discussion. You guys can raise your hand and just some, what kind of observations did you take away from that discussion? Anyone?
We need a little more time to discuss.
Yeah. Oh, I bet 5 minutes is quick, huh? Okay, so noted.
I really liked where Michelle was going with telling us about what Portsmouth was doing by focusing on their downtown area. And I really love downtown Portsmouth. I stay at the Renaissance a lot when I go to the Portsmouth area. And I was going to ask her, is that the area around where they're focusing? Because I do think that that's a really walkable area. There's a lot to do kind of in that area. So I really was hoping to have more time because I could pick her brain about what they're kind of doing in that area right there in Portsmouth. I love staying in that area. So I just wanted to really hear more about what they're doing in Portsmouth. So that was my only key takeaway, is that I really feel like we could glean a lot from just listening to what others are doing in their respective areas.
Well, noted. So we'll give a little bit more time and breakouts in the future. So I'm still learning about how to put all this together and what works for this group. So I think that we probably need a little bit more time. And also for Michelle and Robin, if you guys are able to stick around for that last 15 minutes, you can talk a little bit. We also share the contact information on the Google Drive. So feel free to reach out to each other even after class. So after the huddles, I like that better. Anything else? Any key discoveries?
And from our group, we had folks at different stages, either pre-501c3. We had another sort of dedicated 501c3 Main Street. Portsmouth Partnership has a 501c3 but is running multiple programs. I think we all sort of were talking about some of the challenges around engagement and steering folks in the right direction, and like how to kind of different folks engaged in forward or student city, and just some of the opportunities in that space.
Good. You know, Liz, I think that will be a really important topic to address a little bit next month when we're with Cindy Colson from Center for Nonprofit Excellence, and in May when we can really take a deep dive in person during the rev ups. But meanwhile, we can chat about that outside of it along the way. Thank you. Anything else? Maybe one more key discovery?
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't get much time to go into it, but Aaron from Leesburg offered the importance of giving assignments to individuals as a way to engage them and advance collectively, which it sounds like there's a lot of wisdom there, and I wanted to go deeper with her.
Delegating. That's good. Hey, and that's one of the norms that we all discovered at the orientation. So that's great. Maybe one more.
I'll share. I was just sharing, since we have an established board and have for some time, just a re-education to not only our board internally, but also our merchants, our community. I think that would help really move this thing further down the court.
Okay. Yeah, and you guys will find that it's constant re-education because there's always a new leader coming on board, and so getting them caught up it's just going to be a normal activity of the organization and even with the public. So good. Well, thank you guys. And I've noted I'll give you a little bit more time for breakouts in the future. We have one more coming up. So depending on time, we can I might be able to stretch that a little bit. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit. This is, I think you all probably with your experience in nonprofits already kind of understand what a mission and vision is all about, but they're those key statements that really guide the work of the organization. So this is basically the hierarchy of your work plan, of your strategic plan. So mission statement is that statement of the purpose of why. Why does your organization exist? Why does it do what it does? And then your vision statement is where do you want to get to? But that's long term, very can be very visual about what downtown looks like in the next 5 to 10 years. What are you trying to achieve? What are those results for the organization? Values we're not going to get into very much, but later on, as you get some of these primary elements for your program down, that's something to explore because those values help the leadership know how to behave during this journey. And then these are the rest of the parts of your work plan that you'll be putting together. The focus areas, transformation strategies are really goals. That's just some transformation strategies is jargon, but these are the goals that you're working towards, your objectives, what you want to achieve, your projects and activities, that's your plans, how you will achieve them, and then your key performance indicators, or how you measure if you're successful or not. So we had you all do some homework, watch a little video from Simon Sinek, and this is just a little information about him. So of course he wrote this book, Start With Why. In this book he explores what innovators and leaders from Apple to Martin Luther King have in common. He points out that these people and companies begin projects with why such projects should be pursued rather than seek to justify or promote projects and work ad hoc. I think I stumbled through that. It probably was hard. Point is that people, when they know why they do what they do, tend to work smarter. But if you're starting with the what piece, it doesn't quite grab the soul and the heart as much, and people don't get into that as well. So diving in even further around that, here's a nice little quote as far as the why. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And so what he says in that is that if you know your why and you're utilizing it in your mission statement or even in your message delivery, it motivates, persuades, compels your audience to support your vision or mission. It's more motivating. It cuts through competition and moves people to action and connects people to your cause and ultimately builds stronger relationships. It prompts the organization to choose more impactful activities. It can be that guardrail. So if you're doing some work planning around some activities to support your mission, if you know your why and you're really sticking to it, if somebody proposes a project that doesn't align with that, it may be something that either one goes further down on your priorities or gets passed on to another partner organization. So it can be that guardrail. So just explaining this a little bit. Here's his golden circle, right? A lot of organizations start with what they do first. So every organization on the planet knows what they do. These are products they sell or their services. The how, some organizations know how they do it. They are the things that make them special or set them apart from their competition. And then there's the why. Very few organizations know why they do what they do. Why is not about making money. That's a result. Why is a purpose, cause, or belief. It's the very reason your organization exists. So here's a good example, and this is just something to sort of take in. So Rev Birmingham is a city program in Alabama. Here's an example of what their mission statement used to be and what it is now. So when starting with what and ending with why, as far as their mission statement goes, see whether one is more effective or more inspiring than the others. So looking at what, Rev is an economic development organization. We exist to serve as a catalyst for the growth and vibrancy of Birmingham's city center and neighborhoods. Okay, yeah, it's good to know. Starting with why, we believe Birmingham can be the most vibrant urban market in the Southeast, a place where everyone can realize their dreams. To make that happen, we create vibrant commercial districts, beautiful and safe places where people shop, work, play, and enjoy life every day. Curious if you guys feel or know maybe what the difference is after observing those two. What are your thoughts on that? And maybe this is something to discuss in the group in a few minutes. So with that in mind, make sure that you have your mission, your homework in place. Kind of read it over. Take a minute to read it over and reflect on your draft program mission. Now, we recognize that this is so early. You've barely done any public input around your vision and your mission statements. That this is something to get you started and will probably evolve as you move up throughout the Mobilizing program. So make sure you have it out, because we're going to take a minute now for the next breakout group to reflect on it and think about that piece of the starting with why. So these are the questions that we're going to think about. What stood out to you while reflecting on your program's mission and vision? How can you strengthen alignment with your community needs and stakeholders? Now, that's something that you might need to refine later on. But think about a little bit about how can you strengthen it after this discussion? What stood out to you after reflecting on it after this information? So let's take a minute now. We're going to do random breakouts again. I'll give you a little bit more time. We can't do too much. The last piece that we're doing won't take that long. But I don't think this is going to take a lot of time anyway. So let's go ahead and do breakouts real quick. And I'll make sure that these questions are in the announcement.
Back again.
Nah, back again. Zach couldn't get into the groups, but this is good. This works out fine. So, John, you probably already had a mission statement. I'm just kind of curious how this conversation landed with you and what you have to work with at this time.
mission statement already, but we use this as an opportunity to sort of revamp it a little bit and think more critically about what we had said before and how we could make it even better, honestly. So we do have a couple more drafts in the pipeline based on the questions that we were prompted.
It's true.
That's good. Good.
Yeah.
How about Rocky Mount? Any thoughts about what you already have?
Yeah, if we did have one, it's lost with time because when the organization was formed, it was very much focused on beautifying the uptown and downtown.
Okay.
And the group kind of recognizes that a lot of that work has been done. We're kind of transferring to something else. So if we did have one, we don't know what it is, but I am looking forward to having this conversation with the full board just to see what their thoughts are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a guiding document. It keeps everybody moving. It can be used, in a public way in your marketing. Definitely want to have it on your website to let people know what you're doing. How about anybody else? What stood out to you while reflecting on your, this draft mission and vision? How can you strengthen it? Zach? And Zach, what community are you with?
So I'm from Woodstock.
You're Woodstock, cool.
Yes. So we currently have a mission statement for what's called our enhancement committee, but that is like a town-wide event and planning group. So we really focused on building one out for just our Main Street community, and we focused a lot on like actions and things. But I kind of like what you said about like the why needs to go first. So ours is a little bit backwards in terms of what we need to do, but I think we just need to flip kind of what we came up with because we had the why and the what and all that in there.
Yeah, good. That's great. Yeah. And it may be just that, just a little bit of refinement. And hey, I'm a big fan of AI. There's nothing wrong with running it through there and saying, hey, how can you best reflect, these elements of our community that we're trying to enhance? You can set it up and say, here's our draft. What are some options? So save time. Or if that's going a little too far, don't worry about that.
Yeah, so we actually use that for our vision statement because we had like 3 or 4 pieces for everyone that we really liked. So we used AI to kind of put it all together.
Okay.
So
good.
We've already used that.
No shame in that. None at all.
That's right.
How about you, Michelle?
I was going to say
Michelle's
we
with
use AI.
Portsmouth, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I got kicked off and then couldn't get back on, so I missed the first couple minutes. Yeah, we use AI too.
Yeah, we're just talking about ways to strengthen what you guys have already.
Yeah, our biggest problem was to get to that vision mission without everybody was really good at listing all the projects they wanted and the goals and things like that, and then just kind of funneling it back to that overall mission vision. And so I think we're close again with AI, but that was the hardest part, with our steering committee, right? Like it's a large group and everybody has all these little projects that they want to do and that's what they're all excited about, but coming up with that overall.
Yeah. Exactly.
That broad. Yes. So again, AI was definitely our friend on that one.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and hit the button to close out the rooms, but we can keep on talking as people return. Is there anything else you guys want to touch on? Good. All right.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sneak out here.
Thanks for coming late.
Yeah, I would love to, but no.
All right. I know, I'm sure lots of folks were like mid-sentence and then there you go. That's it. Again, we'll leave a little bit more time for these breakout groups for future trainings. We'll keep that in mind. So any key discoveries at this point in that conversation? Opportunities for improving your mission statement or your vision statement? Any thoughts on that? We are focusing more on your mission statement, admittedly so in this conversation. because it's so important in guiding the work that you do moving forward and even informing your talking points and getting people on board. Any key discoveries at this point? Erin, are you raising your hand?
I am, yeah. So I mentioned to our group that we put out the worksheet to our entire board for feedback and review. You know, not everyone engaged, but we got some really nice feedback on making both the mission and vision statements more kind of actionable and vibrant. So that was a fun exercise.
Yeah, that's a fun way to do it. Yeah. And I like that we're talking about process and even putting together a mission statement. You got a nice worksheet, but heck, there's plenty of technology to help you refine this thing or even start from somewhere. What are other key discoveries? Anyone?
Well, I think I'm Tommy from City of Salem. I have two things. One was similar to what that feedback was, kind of getting that feedback from other folks on the board. We heard just making sure some of the other organizations you overlap with, that kind of what their visions and missions are brought to the table there as well. And so kind of that engagement. And then my other thing was just more on an operational program here. Our group in Salem, 3 out of our 4 end up in the same group. I don't know if it's too late to change the groups because we want to get some other feedback from some of the other organizations that are here. I'm just throwing that's separate, but just if that's a potential opportunity to change that, that'd be helpful.
So each breakout, did you end up with the same group? It didn't randomize you differently?
Our community, 3 out of our 4, the last 2 have been in the same meeting.
Fascinating.
We had the same group.
We won the lottery.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so you get to do a little bit of group work, a little impromptu discussion there. I'll see what I can do about that. But thank you for that comment. That's good to know. It may not work out perfectly every time we do this randomly, but hopefully it'll be different next time. But if not, again, we'll figure this out. Anything else? Any other observations?
We observed
That's okay. I saw Rebecca start to talk.
Yeah. So I was with, I'm the other City of Salem person, but I was actually with Roanoke City. And so I think one of the things that was really interesting is kind of hearing, because they're doing it slightly different than kind of what we're doing it. But it was interesting to hear how they're taking other organizations and groups and kind of considering what their mission and vision statements are and how theirs can be complementary and also collaborative with theirs. So I thought that was a really kind of interesting kind of perspective that we, didn't really necessarily consider here in Salem, just kind of looking at those mission and vision statements of groups that they're going to be working with.
Good. Yeah, I mean, that can certainly help to ward off any too much overlap or confusion between organizations too. I think that's a great idea, Rebecca. But I'll, as we move on to the next, or before I start talking, I don't want to dominate this. Who else was starting to talk?
I was starting to say it's Vanessa from Leesburg, and we kind of talked about how the what and the how come pretty easily, and it's kind of like the why is really important, and we could work on making that a little bit stronger so that it's not just implied. So I think sometimes we end up with an implied why instead of a very specific stated one.
Interesting, Vanessa. Yeah. I think that's true. We see a lot of the whats and the hows in organizations, but putting that why forward could make it stronger. So that's good, great. And one thing that we talked about just in closing on this is using AI. Nothing wrong with that. After you collect all this input from your committee, you can always prompt it with the assignment. With some of those key elements of a good a mission statement, and then run it through there and see what it comes up with, and then you can refine it from there. So just know that there's no shame in that. Just make sure it feels right in the end and looks right. All right, y'all. Thank you. All right, so we're just going to talk quickly about stakeholders. This isn't a long conversation since we are closing in on the end of our first virtual huddle. So this is a quick conversation. Who are your stakeholders? Because we brought that up earlier in especially around the mission statement, developing that. So who are your stakeholders? So let's just kind of list this out. For whom are you creating value? That might be your beneficiaries, that they're actually going to benefit from the program in some way. For whom are you creating value? Who helps us to create results? Those would be your stakeholders too. You can just throw it into chat, or feel free to raise your hand and tell us. Either way. Residents, yep. And if I don't see you, feel free to raise your hand. Merchants, tourists, so your visitors. Look at that. Now you guys are working it. Small businesses, local merchants. Oh, downtown workers. So now you're getting into a specific customer group in some ways. Ah, property owners. Good. Everyone, Mandy says. They're all. So I'm just kind of curious. Are all of these beneficiaries? Are you creating value for all of these? Yeah. Oh, youth. I like it. Youth, colleges and school systems, especially if you have a college that's nearby, thinking about the Lexingtons of the world. Yeah, that's good. So those who create results might be some of your partners. Certainly they're stakeholders, but they're not necessarily direct beneficiaries of it. So that might be your local government. It might be some of it depends on your activities too. Some of that might be your small businesses if you're doing a small business promotion. That might be your small businesses. They help you to create results. But all of these are stakeholders. You guys are right. So these are just some of the benefits. So for business owners, a Main Street program would help to increase sales. You might provide some educational opportunities for them. District marketing, of course, to bring a customer base into the district. There may be some grant opportunities for them, facade improvements, marketing, micro grants of some sort. Residents, they have an enhanced marketplace. They have more of a sense of community because they're involved in the program as volunteers, and they have an opportunity to participate. And then you also have your property owners. Boy, they get increased occupancy rates. They have an easier time filling those vacancies, increased property values. They might even get design assistance, because design assistance is something that comes with being an advancing Virginia Main Street community. So you can get those facade drawings done. And there may be even grant opportunities for rehabilitating that long vacant structure in downtown that can be a catalyst for change. And then local government, increased tax base, job growth, new development, coordinated vision and mission, etc. So those are just some great examples. And this just sort of sums up some things. It is a diverse group, as you said, everyone. Some are more directly impacted than others. You've got community involvement too. So they enter the equation a little differently. And then you've got that collaboration with local government. So keep that in mind. We're going to, again, go into this a little bit further as we start talking about some of our essential partners, key partners in implementing our Main Street. So that's really as far as we're going to go on the stakeholders. That might come into play as you're refining your mission statement. We'll have a chance to talk in just a minute, but I want to start moving towards closeout. So key takeaways. So hopefully we were able to really hit that governance structures, maybe not best practices so much just yet. Aligning mission and vision with community needs, that will be refined further as we move through this. And then some of our stakeholder identification. So this is your next homework assignment. I really try to keep these 2 hours or less. So this one may not take very long for you to refine. Keep working on that mission and vision worksheet. It's going to evolve as you move through this program. Watch the video, the inclusive leadership and organizational capacity. So this just happens to be one of the Main Street America standards. So they're going to go into that. So hopefully you find that helpful in understanding a little bit more about those who should be on your board and why, and what that network of participants in the program looks like, whether they're volunteers, committee members, or board members. And then there's just a few pages in the Main Street Program Leadership Guidebook. That's from Iowa. So you're just going to be looking over pages 13 through 18. But if you're an A+ student, feel free to peruse that whole thing because it's such a great document that I'm a little envious of some of our other coordinating programs and some of their resources that they've developed. Identify 501c3 needs with your PA. This is where you can take a little deeper dive. And then lastly, apply for a Main Street Now scholarship. And Courtney, could you jump on real quick to talk a little bit more about what that looks like?
So I'll send out an email after this presentation concludes. It's going to the primary point of contact for the 11 communities. So I'm sending out 11 emails. And it will include a link to apply for scholarship to the Main Street Now National Conference in Philadelphia the 1.5 week of April. So April 6th through 9th. If you're already planning to go, or if you have already registered, that's okay. You can still apply for a scholarship and we can apply it retroactively. There are only 6 scholarships available, and registration is usually sold out. So it's a little bit of a game of beat the clock here, but the first 6 scholarship applications that meet the requirements will be awarded, and hopefully you will be able to register before it books out. So I think that's everything.
Cool, thank you. So just know that this next 30, of course, you'll get the slide deck that'll be uploaded to the Google Drive, and I'll make sure all of those hyperlinks work. So just know that's going to be there, but it's also part of that activity tracker, which is one of the first documents you see when you get onto the Google Drive. This is just digging deeper. For those of you who will be starting up a new nonprofit, this is a helpful guide that the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, so we're institutional members with them. They're out of Charlottesville. They've created their own guide, so starting a nonprofit toolkit, and that'll be very specific to Virginia, of course. So with that, any questions? So where do we need more clarification? And just know around 12:15, if you need to get going, if you're starving, feel free to jump off or stick around for that last 15 minutes. That can just be sort of open discussion, communication, and connection. All right, I'm going to shut up. Any questions at this point? This is the catch-all. What do we need for more clarity? Did we blow your brains? They're hurting now.
Yeah, hello. This is Daniel with Rocky Mount. I'm curious if there are examples that you could share of committees, different types of committees. I'm sure a lot of it depends on the community and the focus of the organization, but seeing examples of those might be helpful.
Well, any of our team or anybody's encouraged to answer. I alluded to this earlier, that the committees don't necessarily have to be organized around the 4 points. It's a good starting point. What's most important from what I've seen is that they reflect the priorities of the organization. So what's on your work plan? Do you have a big event downtown that requires a workforce and some brain power and people? So that might be a committee in order to make sure that that is a successful result. Fundraising, something that is centered around the sustainability of the organization and bringing in revenue. That's an important one. If you have a design project in downtown, you're starting to do some improvements. Maybe this is an ad hoc committee that is for a specific design project, like a green space or a mural, or a facade a grant program, and developing that out. So does that help to give some guidance around that, Daniel?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify, even so, maybe you don't have the 4 committees for the 4 points, but you must have work in all 4 points. You can't blow one of them off. And one thing that we see often in early stage Main Street efforts is an overemphasis on public events. And that is not going to, having an organization that has 4 committees for 4 events is not going to be a designated community at the end of this program.
A harsh reality. Yeah.
I have a question. So the, the 4-point approach is, board design, economic vitality, and marketing or promotions. Does the board of directors satisfy that board committee?
The organization piece?
Yeah.
I don't think so. And I see Blair, do you have some words you want to share around that?
I think oftentimes early organizations are, early in their lifespan tend to default that the organization committee is their executive committee. And from my perspective, and I think everybody has a different opinion, but I believe the organization committee's work expands well beyond just what an executive committee's role or responsibility is. I think that if we look at volunteer recruitment and development, training, retention, celebration, that is one aspect of what I would consider to be an organization committee's role that is beyond that of an executive committee. So that's just one example, but I think there are many ways to slice and dice it, as kind of Kyle's alluded to, and having your committees structured around the actual work of the nonprofit and the goals and objectives, I think is very effective. But the 4 points from the beginning is good. Zachary also has comments.
Zachary.
Well, I was just going to say, agreeing with Blair too, but even back to Daniel's question around the committees and their purposes, we have some communities, I'll just use Farmville as an example, that may have those 4 traditional committees around the 4 points, but there are subcommittees that work with the larger committee that are focused more singularly on retail promotions instead of just events. There's committees that are focused on finance or fundraising. So you have a little bit more of a targeted approach within that larger committee, and there's just, like Kyle said, many flexible different ways to kind of work that for quite literally what works best for you.
Yeah. And Zach, got your hand raised?
Yes. So I have a question about like our work's like planning and starting to get the ball rolling. So, like at Woodstock, we're currently not 501c3, right? We just have a steering committee and not a board. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. And what I don't want to do is like get ahead of kind of what our sessions and kind of where we should be, but also don't want us to get behind. So like when, and this is very specific, but like when should we start thinking about like setting up the 501c3 and the board, and or like I just need a little clarity for my brain on like when we need to start actually taking work instead of just planning these things. Does that kind of make sense?
Who's Zach's PA? Do you want to touch on this?
I think it's Blair.
It's Blair. She's frozen.
Or is that a question I just need to ask Blair later, right? Like,
yes.
No, it's a really good question. And I think that on the homework, it is beginning to have those conversations and beginning to make moves for us to start organizing and creating that 501c3. There's chicken and egg. There's multiple ways to start and begin the work. You all already have your enhancement committee structure, and you can begin aligning yourself with the Main Street model, which you've already done. And so really it's just creating that formal nonprofit entity that we can start. It's my understanding, Courtney, that we're starting as soon as possible, right?
Yes. Yes. So for those organizations that do not have the 501c3 that you need, we will provide some financial support and connect you with resources to apply for and receive that 501c3 before the end of the 2 years. But it does take a lot of paperwork. So beginning now is very important. And please connect with your program administrator so that we can get that started immediately.
Thanks.
Anything else? We can go on another 9 minutes.
In regards to that 501c3 creation, there's a lot as far as our local elected leadership within our community, and making sure they're on board. Is there any feedback on that side of I just want to see at some point you're starting the paperwork and you're on, but then when you actually, pull the switch and make it happen, is there assistance and guidance on the further communication of that side?
Yes. And I think Clarksville is a good example of a community that was in a similar position to Salem, where they were 100% local government driven and have had to stand up this nonprofit from scratch. So we can even connect you with Tara Tuck, who is our main point of contact there, and she can give you the real life experience of how that kind of unfolds, but it moves much more slowly than you might imagine. In the beginning, you have a long list of questions that you have to work through with the attorney, and they will help you troubleshoot and make sure that you answer the questions and align them correctly with the intent of a 501c3. And then you will wait for months and months and months. And then it will rear its head and you have to answer more questions, and then you'll wait. So it's kind of a hurry up and wait process.
And lastly, with our current committee, we were thinking maybe there's one or two other people we want to have on there, but we don't want to make it too large now. Can you provide some additional insight or guidance on that?
Yes, and I think when we have our training with Cindy Colson, she will also be able to give you some insight into the size of the board. So some communities can do with a few more people on their board and some cannot. It's the capacity of the overall community will determine that. Like a
and
community
that's related
of
to the steering committee as
Yeah.
now as a whole too, you're talking about.
Yeah. So a community of 1,000 people is not going to thrive with a 15-member board. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Onancock is a great example of that. Like I said, they just have about 7, and they're a population of 1,000, and they have that has helped everybody show up and participate and get the work done. They don't have any issues with quorum, and so that might be another conversation for you guys too. Is talk to some of other communities.
Just off the top of my head, a community the size of Salem, I would say 9 would be your sweet spot because you're larger and you have more capacity.
Yeah. Odd number. Need somebody to break the tie.
And that's you're referencing the board or also this current committee?
The board.
Okay.
And that 9 may or may not include ex officio. So I know that you'll probably want to have at least 1, maybe 2 ex officio liaisons with local government and maybe the chamber or another organization.
Mm-hmm. Got 5 more minutes. Are there any more questions? Otherwise, you guys have the homework assignment. Meet with your program administrator at least once a month. That's most helpful. And I'll get an email out as follow-up with links and just let you know when everything's ready to go. Though, again, homework, it's already set up there. All I'm pretty much going to do is take a PDF version of this presentation, clean up these notes a little bit, and upload it to the Google Drive. So with that, thank you guys for making it through. I've learned a few lessons myself. I think next time I'm gonna leave a bit more space for our breakout conversations. Maybe not have as many of those. Maybe use a little more polls since they're quicker, and then really use some time for some conversation in the middle of our huddle. But since we don't really have an evaluation or any sort of survey at the end of this, feel free to talk to your PA about what may work better for a successful huddle. So we can, these are malleable to a degree. So please speak up. We love that 360 kind of conversation. So other than that, thank you guys.